So hi, everyone. I'm Kim Hallen, and this is the special meeting for the Kinship of the Herd, where we're going to be doing, Shannon Quinn is going to be leading a biofield tuning session for us so that we can learn about it and experience it a little bit. And we have, right now we have Heather here live with us, and there may be one or two other people who come in, so I'll let them in. But I'm just going to turn it over to Shannon. She can introduce herself and introduce biotuning. Biofield, I always want to call it biotuning, but it's biofield. All right, Shannon, go ahead.
Thanks. So I'm Shannon Quinn, and I'm a biofield tuning practitioner. I'll circle back around to that later. So I live near Kim. Kim's been kind of open to letting me try new things with biofield tuning, tune the herd and the horses, which is my favorite. So I'll kind of go over a quick outline of what we're going to cover today, just kind of keep us on track. I'll go over about what biofield tuning is, have a couple visuals. One is the biofield anatomy map, so you can kind of get a visual of what I'm talking about. And then before we start the session, I'll just, if anyone has any questions, like if I wasn't clear on a term or if you didn't understand a concept, then we'll just get those answered. And then we're going to do a short session today, which is about 30 minutes depending on what comes up, and then just to kind of get a sample of it. A typical session lasts about an hour, and then if there's any interest in the future, then we can do like a full on. So this is just an introduction to the concept and just kind of so you can get a feel of what a session looks like. And then after the session, if anyone has any questions or wants to share about anything that came up for them, then we can do that as well. So first, I'll start with the term biofield. So a lot of people have heard of the word aura, which, some people, it's like this energetic field around us. So the term biofield is the official term that the National Institutes of Health, they finally conceded in like 94 and said, okay, there is something there. And the only reason they admitted it is because they have the technology now to photograph it. So they can photograph energy fields around like animals or people or even plants. So that's where the term biofield came. So with biofield tuning, we're working with the idea that our body is electric. So if your heart stops, you use electricity to restart it. Measure brain waves is measuring electricity. And actually, like our bones are piezoelectric. Like as you move, and they're like when you're walking or running, it actually produces a small electrical charge. And our blood and our cells have a small electrical charge. So when you have electricity, you're always going to have an electromagnetic field. So that's our biofield. So biofield tuning works on the premise that we store memories, emotions, like patterns of behavior out in our field. Like we've been taught we store everything in our brain. And I honestly don't know if we store it both places or we just store it out in the field, but we're finding that memories and emotions can be stored out in the field. So if you suppress emotion or you don't process it, it kind of gets stuck. It gets put out there in the field. If you have a bunch of suppressed emotions in your field, it's going to create resistance and make it difficult for energy to flow. So if you have like a really light piece of fluffy cotton, and like a sound wave can kind of easily travel through that. But if you have a bag and you're stuffing emotions or cotton in there and it's getting denser and denser, the sound is going to get muffled, and then at some point it's not going to get to travel through that at all. So when we have these suppressed emotions or experiences or traumas out in our field, it really restricts how the energy can flow. And that can come up as emotional symptoms, physical symptoms that can show up in our body. So what we do in biofield tuning is we use forks, tuning forks, and we have a weighted fork which has these little weights on them, and you won't hear those. Like if you were in person, I would put those on the body, and then it's a vibration would run throughout your body. And then I have unweighted forks, and I don't know where Aunt Kathy is because we have a Canadian hockey puck. And we activate them with the hockey puck. So there's a couple ways, and every practitioner is different. So for me, if I'm out working in your field, I find like these pockets of energy that are stuck. either like with the unweighted fork, you'll like if we're hit, there was trauma or anxiety, we'll all hear it. It'll be like, ooh, it's like jarring. Or if like there's depression, like the sound will literally get sucked out of the fork. It'll be like, whoa. Um, Sometimes I'm moving along and it's like a wall, which logically doesn't make any sense because you think it's just air, but there's an energetic pocket there that won't move. Or sometimes I feel it in my body, like I'll get tense in my heart, or I'll feel it somewhere in my body. So either one or a combination of those three things. So the way I see it is like a tangle of fishing lines. So if you had something happen and it's like this ball of fishing line and it's energy is stuck in there and energy is required to kind of hold it out there. So you're not creating or destroying energy, it's just being held out there in your field. So I'm going to go ahead and share. Where are we going here? Here we go. And this first thing, this is our energy field. Here we go. Can you guys see that?
I can.
Mm-hmm. I can.
Is it still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It disappeared on my screen, but whatever. So anyhow, the whole, because the next visual I'm going to show you is going to look like our biofield is flat, and it isn't. I just wanted to show that our field is this toroidal shape. So that's like when we're out in public and everybody's field is 5 or 6 feet out, and you kind of like when you're in a public setting and you're kind of exhausted by the end of the day because we're all like overlapping with everybody's energy fields. So, and people's fields can be wider than 5 or 6 feet. Some people, if they're kind of pulled inward, they can be smaller, but that's usually about 5 or 6 feet out. So those lines are just the energy moving. So the column through the middle, we pull energy down like from the sun, and then we pull energy up from the earth. So I'm going to stop with that visual, and then I'm going to pull up the biofield anatomy map. And you can see that good?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can see.
And Heather, Kim's going to have this saved because it is a lot of information. So if you want to go back and look at it, because it's kind of a lot right now. So this is the field, and that outer edge of our field is like a double-celled membrane. So it's permeable, but the stronger that membrane is kind of like as far as energetically what we want to let in and what can bounce off. So this probably looks familiar with the colored dots. Those are the chakras. It's the same as they use in Reiki, the same that they use in yoga. The only little bit of a difference is the Earth Star, which is an energy center below our feet, and then the Sun Star, which is an energy center above our head. So if our body's like a battery, the negative end is plugged into the earth, and the positive end is plugged up into the sun. And then the energy, you have a descending current coming down while at the same time coming up, and then it goes out to the outer edge. So some of these things they're all, nothing's brand new here. So like they refer to the central energy channel. Some people refer to it as Kundalini. In traditional Chinese medicine, they call that energy qi. In Japan, they call it ki. So it's all of the same thing. But the thing that Eileen found, like she came up with BioField tuning. She was a massage therapist, and she had tuning forks, and she was just playing around with them. And she found that certain emotions were stored patternly and consistent in the same place. So if you had depression, it was going to be stored off your left heart chakra. And this is kind of the map of the patterns that she had consistently found. So what's interesting about this is like if you have something that's hurting in your body, like you can pull this up. Like me, once in a while, my right ankle will hurt. Like all of a sudden out of nowhere, it'll hurt, and I'll get at the map and it'll say like next steps in life and how you feel about them. And it's kind of usually around a situation where I'm trying to make a decision on, do I want to do this or do I want to do that? So it's kind of interesting sometimes if a pain or you injure a certain area to kind of go back and look, because the body always knows first before we register it up here in our mind. So once people can kind of wrap their head around that, which is a lot to wrap a head around, then the next question is how do distance sessions work? Because that's kind of a lot to wrap your head around as well. And I can't say that I fully understand it. I mean, I know it works because I've been on the giving and the receiving end of it. I don't know if you remember, there was a study in 1993. It was called The Power of Prayer, where like 400 people sent prayer to, it was actually meditation, but they called it prayer, to Washington, D.C., and violent crime dropped by like 44%. So it's the same thing. It's just about intention and sending it out there. So when I do a distance session, it works the same as if you were here in person. And when I do a group, it works the same as if you were doing it individually. So I like the visual. I have the treatment table up. I have the pillow for the head. So I just visualize a full-size body is laying here. But everybody's hologram will be like individually in here. So no one's mixing energies or, and everyone will receive exactly what they're supposed to receive. So what I'll do is the shorter session, I will cut out the part, we'll not do the part we're out working in the field. We'll kind of do the field over the body. And when I'm using an unweighted fork, I'll tell you because you won't hear it. So I start out the session as if you're laying here, and I'll put the weighted fork on certain parts of your body, and I'll tell you what parts that I'm at. And that's really just to get the energy moving. I start out the bottoms of the feet and then work my way up to the crown. I use these toning speakers. There's two of them. They look like little hockey pucks. And they sound like singing bowls, so they'll be playing while I have the weighted forks on your body, and then they run for about like 3 minutes, and then they stop. And then what I'll do here is this Earth Star down here at the bottom of the feet. That's its ideal location. Like if you're like a monk on a mountain, that's where it will be. But everyday life, it's usually up around our ankles. Like if you have a dog that gets nervous, they'll tuck their tail out. So what I'll do is I'll find that with a fork, and then we'll move it down to its sweet spot, which is usually about 12 to 18 inches off the bottom of the feet. And then I'll send that energy with my intention and with the vibration of the fork, and we'll send that energy right up your central energy channel. And I'll walk you through a little breathing exercise that I'll have you focus on the root chakra, and I'll just say where on the body that is. If anyone doesn't know where their chakras is, that isn't a big deal. And then you'll breathe into the root chakra, and then I'll just walk you up the chakras. And the point of that is really just to kind of drop out of our heads and get into the body. Then I'll do a little small guided visualization to ground you. And the way I do that is if you imagine that you're a tree and you're sending down roots like into the ground to kind of hold you stable. And then I'll go work on the energy center above your head, which is the sun star. And during this, you may or you may not. You may feel tingling in your body. You may feel sensations where I'm working or in other places, and you may not. And if you don't, that doesn't mean that it's not working. It's just everyone kind of receives it differently. So then, are you familiar with the Ho'oponopono prayer, Heather?
No.
Okay. So it is a Hawaiian, it was like an ancient Hawaiian prayer, and they've kind of modified it like in the 20th century, I think they kind of modified it. And its translation is to make things right. So I tell people the first person, situation, or even themselves, what pops into your head, like that's who to send the prayer out to. So what I do, and it's 4 parts, and you'll hear different variations, like different orders, but I say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. So I'll say the prayer, I'll tell you what part of the body to focus on, and then I kind of activate the fork and just kind of send that prayer up. And you can either say it out loud, say it to yourself, or not say it at all. And then, and that takes a couple of minutes. But just like I said, first thing that pops in your head, like that's who should you send it to. And if you can't think of anybody, then send it to yourself. So if we were doing a longer session, I would use a pendulum to see where your body wanted the work, and then we'd go out in the field. But we're gonna not do that this time. And then I'll use I'll do a couple more things with the fork, and I'll explain those as I'm doing them. And then I will use the toning speakers again, and I'll hold space at your head. So you're not going to hear anything but the toning. And that's just really kind of a place to be quiet. And a lot of times things will come up for people as far as like insights or just thoughts, or so just kind of just time to be still and see what comes up. And then I'll hold space at your feet, because I like to end at the feet so you're grounded. Because if I were going to end on the head, you might feel kind of spacey afterwards. So we'll end, and that the toning will be playing the whole time. And then you'll know the session is over when I have this wind chime. I say if fairy dust had a sound, this would be it. So I activate that, and I'll just have it go up. I'll hold it over your midline, and in each chakra, I say a really short prayer. So then when you hear the wind chime stop, you know the session's over. But you don't need to get up and turn your camera back on right away. Like if you feel like you're in this good space and you want to stay in that space, then that's where you should stay. So I know that was a lot. Do you have any questions?
So when we're doing this, we should lay down, or do we need to be our feet on the ground, or?
No, you can do whatever. I like to lay down. Some people like to sit in a chair because they're afraid they're going to fall asleep. And if people fall asleep, then that's okay too. Some people have a hard time with the visualization when they're laying down. Like I had somebody, when I was saying about the roots coming out of her feet, she goes, but they were going into the wall. And I'm like, just stop thinking about it. Just breathe. So whatever feels comfortable for you, you can sit, you can lay down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just because Shannon, you and I talked about this before we started recording, but you just said that some people might fall asleep. And if anybody who's watching the recording back falls asleep, I love what you said, which is that someone can receive the work even if they're sleeping. They don't even have to be awake to receive the work.
Right. And it's interesting because when we were first taught about BioField tuning years ago, they told us like not to let clients fall asleep. And I would always let them. I'm like, if this is their time to relax and fall asleep. And it's funny, they've since changed it. They were like, just let them fall asleep. And for me, I think they probably receive more because the little monkeys up there are, you know what I mean? You don't have all those thoughts running in your head. You've like let go, and you still receive it. So yeah.
And so you recommend, just because it helps us all focus, right? When you start, we'll turn off our cameras, get comfortable however we
And
need.
I turn off my camera too, because it is a distraction. Like if I'm moving around or
Yeah.
so it's just better if everyone just turns off their cameras. I had one guy who did not turn off his camera, and he was on his phone, and I was like, do you know?
Oh.
That's gonna be very distracting for you as the
right. So yeah, but I do keep an eye on, like, in case we lose connection or whatever. But other than that, I think it's just better to like everyone just kind of, and eyes open, eyes closed, whatever. And it isn't meditation. You don't have to be perfectly still. And if you need to go to the bathroom, you're still receiving. If you need to go get a drink of water, you're still receiving. So
okay, cool.
okay, I will stop that. Okay. So I will go ahead and turn my video off, and then
And I will too. And well, I'll also, Heather, you and I should probably also mute our audio.
Okay. Good idea.
just so we don't disrupt. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start out with the weighted fork, so you won't hear the weighted fork, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on certain parts of the body, and I'll tell you where the fork is, and just kind of be curious. You might feel some tingling, you might not. Either way, it's all good. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the fork on the bottom of the left foot. Moving over to the right foot. On the side of your left knee. The side of your right knee. The side of your left hip. And the side of your right hip. Now on your sternum. Now on your left lung point, which is around underneath your left collarbone. And then on your right lung point, on the opposite side, below your right collarbone. And then finally on the crown, just going to be in the top and the middle of your head. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to an unweighted fork, which you will hear. And I'm going to go ahead and work on around the feet to find that Earth Star energy center. just take a deep couple of breaths. You're going to inhale deep into the belly. And when you exhale, you're going to visualize that breath running down your legs and out the bottom of your feet. Okay, so the Earth Star was around the ankles, which is normal. So it did come out, sitting about 12 inches below the bottoms of your feet. Okay, now it sounded brighter. It was a little quiet there. I was just waiting for it to get brighter and clearer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send this energy that's in the Earth Star and send it right up that central energy channel. So on your next breath, I want you to focus on your root chakra, which is around the area of the base of your spine. And while you're focusing on that area, I want you to take a deep, long breath in. And a long, slow exhale out. And then we're going to move up to the sacral chakra, which sits below our belly button. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take a deep inhale in. And a long, slow exhale out. And we're allowing that energy to flow up to the solar plexus, which is beneath, above your belly button. And take a deep inhale in. And a long, slow exhale out. Then moving up to the heart chakra, taking a deep inhale into that space. And a slow release out. Next breath, focusing on the throat chakra, taking a deep inhale in. And a long exhale out. And next, focusing on the third eye chakra, which is going to be between your eyebrows. Take a deep inhale in. And a slow exhale out. And finally, we're going to focus on the crown chakra, which is at the top of the middle of your head. Take a deep breath into that space. a big exhale out. Okay, good. That sounds really good. It sounds bright and clear. So now next we're going to focus on getting you grounded. So I want you to visualize that you're standing barefoot. You're either in the grass or in the dirt. Feeling all of those places where your feet are making direct contact with the earth. And on your next exhale, I want you to visualize that roots are growing out from the bottom of your feet and pushing down into the soil. And with each exhale, those roots are growing farther and deeper. They're growing in all directions around you. They're growing in front of you. They're growing in back of you, and to the right and to the left. And as those roots get stronger and thicker, this allows them to push deeper and deeper into the soil. And your feet may feel heavy, like they're being held and supported by the earth. Okay, now I'm going to go above the head and find that sun star energy center up there. So a lot of times in this sun star, we can pick up energy of the collective or what's going on. And it'll be interesting, the closer we get to the election, the more staticky and chaotic it will sound up here in people's earth stars. So the earth star is moving to where it wants to be, but it sounds like it's almost like the sound is pinched, so I'm just going to stay here until that sound gets louder and brighter. That sounds good. So if you want to visualize above your head like a crown of leaves over a tree, and those leaves are pulling down the warmth and the sunlight from the tree, and it's traveling all down through your body, out through the bottom of the feet, into those roots you just visualized. So you have an ascending current of energy coming up from the earth through the midline of your body, while at the same time you have a descending current of energy coming down through the top of your head from the sun. So I'm going to switch forks so you may hear a difference in the tone. And now we're going to move on to the Ho'oponopono prayer. So the first part of the prayer, just put your attention on the root chakra, which is base of the spine or lower belly. And the first part of the prayer is, I am sorry. For the next part of the prayer, we're going to shift our attention up to our solar plexus above our belly buttons. And the next part of the prayer is, please forgive me. Okay, now shifting your attention up to the heart chakra. The next part of the prayer is thank you. Okay, for the final part of the prayer, we're going to shift our attention to our throat and the head. And that part is, I love you. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to a weighted fork so you won't hear that. What I'm doing is I'm activating this fork and I'm starting at your solar plexus. I'm making 3 infinity symbols or figure 8s going around your feet, crossing back over at your solar plexus and above your head. And that's creating this space of harmony and balance. Now I'm going to switch over to an unweighted fork. And this part is referred to as the cocoon. So I'm going to start at your feet and use the fork and like hoop it over your body, walk up to your head, and then back down and tie it off. So it's almost like this little cocoon or chrysalis. And this is creating a safe and sacred space to integrate the work that was moved during a session. Okay, so now I'm going to go up and hold space up by the head, and you'll hear the toning speakers. hold space down at the feet. You are safe. You are joy. You are strong. You are loved. You are heard. You are seen. So one of the things that I didn't mention before was like it's a repatterning of the nervous system, and I think a lot of times we're in fight or flight so much we don't remember what it feels like to be out of it.
Mhm.
And I don't, when I do this with people, I don't guarantee anything. I'll just say, all I say is, so this is typically an hour session, so it would be a lot more time to drop into that space. The difference between this, what we did today, and a full session is after the Ho'oponopono prayer, I would use a pendulum and ask where the body wants to work, and then I would work out in the field, and that's where like the suppressed emotions or the traumatic events or things like that kind of get unwound in return to us. And usually at the end of the session, they're relaxed. And sometimes people are such in fight or flight, they might only have 10 minutes in the hour of being relaxed. But I'll say at least your body knows what that feels like now. And if you can do 10 minutes, you can do 15. And then it's this incremental thing. And for me, I think getting into that parasympathetic nervous system and out of fight or flight, that's the only way that we're going to heal and release stuff, because you can't heal and release things when you're in fight or flight. So the basic, it's just getting your nervous system to relax. That's really the first step.
I get so relaxed in these sessions now.
Yeah.
Having done multiple, it's really relaxing.
Yeah. And Heather, if you just want to leave, like I know sometimes it feels good, and you know if you want a conversation, it'll pull you out of it. Then you can just sometimes when we're in group sessions, it just can fade out. And then if you have any questions, you can just text or call me later.
Yeah, I do appreciate you saying that. That's actually exactly what I was feeling was um right now I'm just having a lot of pressure right here. And then on my left side, um, in my feet. And I would like to just kind of observe that or just be with that and just, um, yeah, that would be great. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you, Shannon. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Kim, for giving us a space for this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Okay. So Heather, she has my number, but Kim, you can post my number when you repost it, and if people watch it and they have questions, they can just that's my cell phone, so they can text, and if they want to talk, we can just schedule something that we can connect.
Absolutely. Okay. And if I know there were a few people who said they knew they couldn't come to this one, but that if you did a longer one
Right.
another time, they would want to do it. Hopefully, I'll make sure everybody at least experiences this one, watches through, and experiences this first.
Right. And at least even just in the beginning to figure out, and that if they watch that, then they know if they have questions going in, and then we can spend the whole hour in session. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this was my first time doing it remotely, and
Yeah.
right, because I've always done it in person with you. I've done it there at your place on the massage table, which is beautiful to do it there. And we've also you've done sessions on me outside at the farm, which has been beautiful. Um, yeah, and I'll just share this in case it's helpful to anybody. Everybody receives differently, and I love that Heather even said like where she was feeling it before she left. I always feel a lot in this area when I get the sessions, and sometimes it feels like my sinuses are clearing during the session. It's very interesting, and I see colors.
Right.
That's just me, but different people have. I'm sure you could get. What are some of the kinds of, not specifics, but the kinds of feedback you typically get?
I do have some people that see like the fractals. I do have people that can kind of, I wouldn't even call it sleep or dreaming, but they go in and out, and they'll see, like they call them movies, but I I don't think it's dreaming either. I mean, I think they're in contact. And an interesting thing is my original teacher, she had said for years, like she was the first teacher that Eileen had trained. She would
Mm,
get a session and wouldn't feel anything. And but she trusted the process because there is this element of faith and trust that you
right.
know don't 100%, but you kind of have to. And a lot of times, like you'll feel relaxed the day of, but it's really an unfolding, especially when we do the bigger sessions and we're in people and we're moving stuff and we're giving that back to them. It'll be a deeper dive than today, but it's I always tell people to look out for the subtle things because we always want the big things, right?
Right.
Um, but just the subtle shifts, like, hey, that person at work used to trigger me and they didn't trigger me, or trigger me as bad, and I responded rather reacted, or because it's like this the little subtle shifts that can make a huge difference in your life, and it will kind of unfold. It isn't, oh, I'm done with the session, it's all done. I think,
You
and even
continue.
me, like, it'll take me like something will happen. I'll be like, oh yeah, like we worked on my throat chakra, and I had this really difficult conversation I couldn't have before. So yeah,
Yeah. 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 That's a beautiful point to say that the effects of it will continue to unfold if you just notice the little
right.
things. Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
and then not to discount everything. Well, that was just a coincidence, or
Right.
um,
Yeah, we have to have that faith, right? And really, I think that if you notice something and you think it might have been related to the session, then go ahead and like believe, lean into that thread, right? If we even have the thought that the session comes back up to us at that around that thing, then it might be related.
definitely.
Yeah. Um, and then another, I'll just say, because this happens to me most times, again, everybody's experiences are different. This is just to say what I often feel like I'm levitating a little bit. This was my first time doing it sitting up. I stayed sitting up this time just to see. And oddly, I felt like just my root, the end of like my butt was, I could feel my root chakra or the tip of my spine was grounded, and like the rest of me felt like it was levitating, which was a very interesting feeling.
And typically, now we didn't move a lot of stuff today. I mean, it was just more of getting centered and grounded and kind of what that feels like in your body. But as far as self care afterwards, it's drink lots of water if you can. This is more important after a bigger session. To either do an Epsom salt like foot soak or a tub soak, but definitely drink lots of water if you can get outside and ground. That's always helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll text Heather too and make sure she,
Yeah,
just because it was her first time.
yeah. You never know. Yeah,
And yeah, we didn't do the full, but you still never,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shannon. Is there anything else you want to say to those who might be listening back before we sign off?
No, I think that's it. I mean, if anyone has any questions, they can reach out, and then if anyone's interested in doing like a full session, we can certainly schedule that.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to, feels like they know just from this that they would like to do something privately with you, they can reach out to you about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can decide how you want to share, but also I think within the membership site, members can message each other too within the membership site as well. So that I think that
And if you
capability.
post my phone number, like if anyone has questions, that's the best way to.
Okay, to post your phone number.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll do that when I post the recording.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shannon.